Our next guest is Mike Lawler, an assemblyman from New York who is now going to be going toe-to-toe with a big Democrat. Mike Lawler, who is running for the 17th district in New York. What's very controversial about his race is that he is running against Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee Chair Sean Patrick Maloney. This is a really big deal, and he also, Lawler, you've recently been endorsed by House GOP leader Kevin McCarthy. So this is going to be a very hot race. The nation is looking at it. This is not just a race that will reflect New York, but also the whole nation. What can you tell me about what your race has been looking like? It's been incredibly tight. I just saw a poll that came out that put you at 46% and Maloney at 44%. Why do you think that people are now moving towards the right in a notoriously liberal area?
Well, the suburbs of New York City have always been a relative swing area in our state. And I've lived here my whole life in Rockland County. I currently represent Rockland County in the New York State Assembly. And I flipped a 2-to-1 Democratic district 2 years ago, defeating a 14-year incumbent. So I feel very good about, our chances here. The poll you referenced that we did about 2 weeks ago shows me up 2 against Maloney and also up 6 against his primary opponent, Alessandra Biaggi, state senator from the Bronx and lower Westchester County. Voters across the Hudson Valley are extremely dissatisfied with what's going on in Washington and Albany, and specifically on the economic issues, inflation, gas prices, taxes, as well as the public safety issue. We've seen a rapid rise in crime in New York City, grandmothers being pushed onto subways, young mothers being shot walking their baby in a stroller, bodega employees being attacked. People are fed up and they're tired of the policies that have been enacted by woke, radical, progressive Democrats that have really made our communities less safe. And so that's really the focal point. And I think we're seeing it in the polls. People are shifting away from Democrats. They want balance. They want common sense restored at every level of government. And that's what I'm running on.
To continue a little bit more looking at the Democratic policies in New York, there was a news piece that came out yesterday about a congestion pricing plan in New York, where there will be taxing of suburban commuters to travel into the city. But currently about 7% of people who work in New York City commute from suburban communities. So can you explain to us why you think Democrats are pushing for this? Is this part of a climate change agenda more broadly? And what is your specific plan for addressing this? Because this would be a pretty big tax on suburban communities.
Well, this is nothing more than a policy to tax suburban commuters and use that money to further their agenda. And, for me, representing a purely suburban community west of Hudson, where rail service is very limited, we do not have a one-seat ride into Manhattan. We have limited express rail service. And we pay about $50 million more in taxes to the MTA than services we are receiving. And so this is nothing more than a money grab that is designed to hurt suburban commuters. And I am adamantly opposed to this. I put in legislation a year and a half ago to repeal congestion pricing outright and eliminate it. The fact is that this money will not be used to increase investments in Rockland County and west of Hudson rail service. It will be used to fund the MTA, which has been one of the most poorly run organizations in America. They are constantly running a deficit. They are constantly borrowing more money. And this is just another way for them to fill their coffers and misappropriate funds, which they have been doing for a very long time. So I am adamantly opposed to congestion pricing. I think anyone who is running for public office, especially outside of New York City, who supports congestion pricing, deserves to be removed from office because it is squarely designed to go after suburban commuters.
I completely agree with that. And what the Democrats, their reasoning, I was looking it up. They said this is going to cause less pollution. And to me, that just seems more of the climate agenda, and that they are pushing for electric vehicles, just like in Biden's Inflation Reduction Act. It's not really that. They introduced Green New Deal policies. Is this what the Democrats are trying to enact in New York City? And what do you think congestion pricing would look like if it were enacted at a federal level?
Well, absolutely. There's no question that this is in furtherance of a bigger agenda. But I think, the way this will be implemented is going to severely hurt small business owners, middle-class families who are commuting into the city for work. And, when you're talking about adding on $9 to $23 as a fee per entrance into Lower Manhattan, after already having to pay to cross over the George Washington Bridge or the tunnels coming across the Hudson River, it's a major problem. And I think it's something that, certainly nationally, Democrats are going to be looking to see how this is implemented and how they may be able to implement it nationwide. I mean, Pete Buttigieg talked about, taxing people on their mileage used. So they are looking at every which way to help fund their radical Green New Deal and implement parts of it in pieces of legislation. Sean Patrick Maloney proudly states that he was an original co-sponsor of the Green New Deal, along with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. This is not a policy that, middle-class families across New York State and across the country can afford. And at a time when we're seeing gas prices, over $5 on the national average, at a time when inflation is at 9.1%, the highest in over 40 years, New York taxpayers and middle-class families across the country cannot afford this, and it needs to be stopped dead in its tracks.
This has been a great interview, and we hope that we can have you back on sometime before the general election, or even more hopefully after, when you win.
Absolutely. Look forward to it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Tell us how you ended up in Arizona.
I came here for an opportunity, like so many people come to Arizona because there's a job offer, and I came here for an opportunity as a journalist.
Of course, in addition to Reagan, there was Trump, who kind of also came out of the media world and was a businessman. He did both, but over your years, you've covered politics closely, and so you're aware of the issue.
I mean, I covered Arizona for 27 years. Not many people have the great opportunity for a career to go into work every day and wrap your arms around the biggest issue facing your state or your community, dig into it, get to understand it, and then put the information out to the people. And I did that in a fair manner. I always felt I was a fair reporter. So I have an understanding of all the issues facing Arizona. But when I walked away from my career because I realized the corporate media was just pushing all propaganda and I wasn't willing to be part of that, the people of Arizona reached out to me and said, would you please consider running for office? We need somebody who we trust, who understands us, who understands the issues. I thought, well, wow, maybe this is God kind of tapping me on the shoulder, saying this is that moment I opened you up for. Because right now, he who controls the information controls the people. And the people controlling our information are lying to the American people. And we need somebody who's been in that world of media, who can tell people what's really going on. And I always say, turn it off. If you're watching the mainstream corporate media, turn it off. They are lying to you. They're trying to divide us. They're trying to hurt this country. And people are waking up to it, thank God. And we're winning. And I believe we're going to win this and turn Arizona around. And I know that because we've got the swamp creatures coming out of the woodwork trying to get us. And they are panicked. They don't want to let go of the power they've had, the control they've had of Arizona for a generation. 40, 50 years they've been in control. And they're scared to death about we the people taking back our government. But it's going to happen. And the left, recognizing how powerful that love of country is, ended up spinning around and trying to make it look like if you are patriotic, you're a racist. And they pushed all that. If you like Trump, you're a racist. And they've been pushing that for 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And Americans are done with that. They now know we're not going to sit back and allow the left to try to scare us, kowtow us down into a situation where we let our country go because we're afraid to stand up because we might be called a name.
So, and I heard you speak on the campaign trail a couple times where you talk about the border and you say, I mean, that's one of the top issues here in Arizona. I heard you last night in a clip saying, we've got to declare an invasion basically and then take very aggressive steps to address this.
Well, the Constitution gives us the remedy for what's happening on the border. We have an invasion. If you've been down there, you recognize it. If you've been following the story even remotely, you recognize we have an invasion. And we got to call it what it is, and that allows us to basically kick in our inherent rights under Article 1, Section 10 to protect our own people from an invasion. And that's what we're going to do on day one.
Any closing thoughts of your vision for Arizona?
Well, I'm going to go back to where I started, which is the Midwest, a family of 9. I'm the youngest. We had 8 girls and 1 boy, and I was raised with a good work ethic. My father was a public school teacher. He taught history and government, and a football coach. My mother was a nurse. And we had to work for everything we had. And we need to get back that working spirit, that work ethic in America, because we've got a lot of work to do to clean up the mess. And I can't sit back and watch these career politicians, these lobbyists, these lawyers who typically get into office and they only care about their special interests and their donor class. So I'm stepping forward using my God-given talents to try to help save Arizona. And I ask everybody to get out there and vote like your lives depend on it. We're at a crossroads. Are we going to go back to the old McCain mafia, McCain machine running the show, where we the people get nothing and no representation, or are we going to be America first, Arizona first, and truly have our best days ahead of us? Got some work to do to dig out, but we have our best days ahead of us.
Okay, well, we'd like to thank Kari Lake. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Good luck on the campaign trail and in the upcoming primary.
Thank you so much.